What the Fringe, the podcast dedicated to all things Fringe theater. I'm your host, Lauren Hantz. Each week I visit with a Fringe artist to hear all about their endeavors and gain insight into their process. This week I'm visiting with Joanna Rannelli of Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, Confessions of a Hairstylist. In this 60-minute comedy, Rannelli embodies the role of Nikki, a charismatic hairstylist with a knack for storytelling. Drawing inspiration from real-life encounters, Nikki invites the audience into her salon where a cast of colorful clientele share their sassy, saucy, and scandalous hair-raising secrets. Bangs, Bobs, and Banter is a must-see show with a blend of humor and humanity that is sure to have the audience laughing and moved. What's your hair story?
I learned early on that people want to meet you. You can hire people to flyer for you, but I think they really are connected to you. They want to ask you a question. They want to meet the artist. A part of this experience is that they get to. A lot of the times they get to meet us. And I don't know if I've met anybody that really goes, I love flyering. But you know what I do love is the connection to a person. I'm actually not always the greatest at flyering because I'll meet one person and I'll connect with them and that's it. But sometimes I meet a friend or an audience member that comes year after year to see me. Like I meet that connection. And that's important to me.
Joanna is an award-winning theater performer and TV, film, and voice actress based in Vancouver, British Columbia. Joanna trained at both Douglas College's acting program and the University of British Columbia's BFA acting program. When she is not performing, she is coaching and teaching acting. Joanna has performed and produced several Fringe shows, and in 2023, she debuted her one-woman storytelling show, Private Parts: The Secrets We Keep, at the Orlando Fringe Festival, which went on to perform to multiple sold-out houses, received a 4.5-star review from the Winnipeg Free Press, was up for Calgary Fringe's Outstanding Fringe Award, and won the Audience Choice Award at the Vancouver Fringe. She is thrilled to be touring Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, Confessions of a Hairstylist this coming year, which won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Solo Comedy at the Orlando Fringe. Joanna is driven by a passion for creating art that sparks conversation and fosters community. Joanna, welcome to What the Fringe.
Hello, thanks for having me.
I am so excited. So I think I told you this just a minute ago before we went on air that you have been on my radar for a very long time. And I say this to listeners, people are watching you. People watch people. I have my eyes on so many people. And I learned about you from the Vancouver Fringe in 2023. And I was like, who's this chick? And I wanted to see your show, but I couldn't because it kept selling out, which is so great for you, so sad for me. And I am so happy for you. I always am like, I'm happy for you. And then I cry a little bit. Then I started following you online and just so impressed by everything that you put out and how you kind of put yourself out there and how you market your shows. And you were on the podcast last season for our World Fringe Day. And so I'm just has been jonesing to have you on. So you're here.
I'm equally as excited to be here. So I've been checking your stuff out as well. And I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Oh, good. See, we silently stalk one another in the backgrounds. This is how the world works, but not creepy, not in a creepy way, all in good ways. Okay, well, let's get to it. Let's chit chat. So tell me, what led you to do Fringe? You've been doing other things. You're a classically trained actress. Why Fringe?
When I graduated from university, I was cast in a Fringe show. It was a published play, The Crackwalker by Judith Thompson. So that was my first sort of introduction into Fringe. And I remember thinking, this is wild. This is wild. Why do we have such a big set? We only have 3 hours to tech this. And we didn't get through tech. It was crazy and so addicting. It was such a rush to be a part of this. It was at a venue outside of Granville Island. So this was back in the day at a place called Pacific Theater. And I won't forget the community that was already so built into this festival. And I had the time of my life in this festival. I was like, this is amazing. And then I didn't do anything. I didn't audition anymore. I was sort of doing other projects and working with other companies. And then I decided I got cast in a couple other Fringe shows, which was really cool. And I worked with Spec Theatre because I actually was one of the founding members of Spec Theatre. So I did a one-person show with that. I did a show in Calgary. And then I decided to produce my own things. So I was like, I have a story to tell. I think I have some stories I really need to tell. And then that sort of brought me back to this again.
That's lovely. I didn't realize you worked with Spec. We love Spec. What is it about solo performance? I mean, you just said you have a story to tell, but what is it about solo performance that you like? Because you now have 2 shows under your belt. It's a very specific thing and it's hard. It's hard to do a solo show. So why? Why do you do it?
Yeah, I think specifically touring the Fringe, it can be challenging doing that in a cast of people, like there's some risks, right? Going on the road, knowing that those are all on me is okay for me. I think that it isn't that the stories I tell couldn't be told by multiple people. It's just one of them is a story about my life. So I feel like that's something that, not that someone else couldn't pick up that show and do it, but it's something I sort of needed to do. And I'm a character actor, so Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, I just wanted that challenge. I also wanted that challenge to be able to tell multiple stories from the different sides of me that I bring to life on stage. But yeah, I mean, I have toured in groups, like with 2 of us touring on the road, and it is amazing. It can be a lonely road touring on your own. There's a lot that sort of falls on your shoulders. I think it's just something that I felt like I needed to do. I just needed to know that I can do this. I can do this.
Yeah. It's one of the hardest things that I've done, like as an artist, but also one of the most rewarding and beautiful things that I've ever done. So it's great. And as all solo performers know, solo shows are not solitary. So you've got Carrie Ipama that works with you and probably, I'm assuming, some other folks. What is that like, bringing somebody else into your creative process?
I don't think that I'd be where I am if it wasn't for the support that I have. There's such a community of people behind me and always have been behind me. My best friend, who's like my sister, I call her my sister, actually, she choreographs all the movement. Like if I have a dance piece in it, she'll choreograph that. So I have her, but I can't speak like more highly about Carrie and working with her. What I thought my show would be in the beginning and what I sort of pitched to her about working with her ended up being something totally different. Honestly, knowing that I have somebody like Carrie on my side, somebody that I can talk through these things with her, helps me to dramaturge and direct this stuff. I honestly just don't think I'd do it without that. I don't think I would be where I am without that voice and that support. And my old theater teacher from high school is also involved. She'll give me advice or look over some stuff. She helped me a bit with Bangs, Bobs, and Banter as well. Like all hands on deck. Everybody's there to be like, we got you, you can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that community aspect because it's just no solo show is ever just solo. There's so many people that are getting involved. Well, and I think it's interesting because Carrie does dramaturgical work for you and Private Parts was more of like a personal story. So how does that work like on the dramaturgical side? Like what is she doing? Is she like fact checking, calling people? She's like, did this really happen? Let me tell you what actually happened.
There was a lot of dramaturgy stuff that happened with that show and still is. And mainly it's a lot of questions being asked about my life, and she really helped to where to put the pieces. I didn't have to really worry about structure necessarily as telling the stories and just sort of looking through it. And with Carrie, we didn't necessarily worry about theme. What is the theme? Because I was laying pretty heavily into the theme a little bit. And she was like, it will come. And it does. It just did. So she did. Like having her on the other side of the story, because for me, I can be somebody that just gets right to the point without elaborating on what happened. And that's the other thing as a solo storyteller. There's times in my head, I'm like, you're bored. You don't want to hear any more about this. That was too much. Like there's that other voice, that's happening, and having to remember that this is the first time someone is hearing this. And Carrie is so curious. So she listens on the other side of this with such curiosity and questions. And I'm the first person to be like, let's cut that. Should we cut that? And she's like, not yet, Joanna. Let's see where this goes. So actually, like, even though there's stories about my life, which stories play into this? Which aspects need to be told? Does this serve the story? And those are the things that Carrie really helps me to define and decide what's going into the show. And I learned from her to just speak from a place of complete honesty, because I think what happened to me for a long time is I stopped creating, not authentically, but I was really worried about what people would think. And if I say this, will this trigger somebody? What's going to happen if I do that? Well, am I going to cancel myself without even knowing I just did that? Can I say that still nowadays? Is that okay? Without just coming back to the heart and the truth and the heartbeat of me, who I am. Because everybody has stories, and everybody, if we come back to that place, I think that's where we connect with audiences. It's that place, not being so worried and scared about that. And Carrie brought me back there. Also, her being American, me being Canadian is such an interesting dynamic, right? Because there's some stuff that's bred inside of me and within the Canadian fringes too. Like it is so different performing to a Canadian audience versus a US audience. And even depending on what city you're in, I watch jokes like soar and die, like along the circuit, going, oh, this has now become somewhat offensive somehow. Like, when did that happen?
It is. And depending on what part of the country you're in, I'm sure it's the same in Canada. Like, a joke, how it lands here isn't going to land the same way as it does back home. And like, I have some things in my show that deal with the American healthcare system, like very briefly. And I remember going to Vancouver and being like, oh, I may need to clarify for people what I mean. And I have to think about that when I take the show like outside of America.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Okay. So Private Parts, The Secrets We Keep, and Bangs, Bobs, and Banter's Confessions of a Hairstylist both kind of deal with this idea of like secrets and confessions. And I am so curious as to what draws you to those topics, like that's a very kind of like specific theme. So why?
That is something that came from Carrie for sure. When I pitched to Carrie again, the story of my life, I said, this is going to be the search for my birth mother. I'm adopted, and I think I need to tell this story. So as we started to unravel things in my life, she was like, Joanna, I think there's this theme about secrets. And it turns out I was born a secret as well, is what I found out later in my life. And secrets in my life have really hurt me, whether they're from other people or myself. And I still keep some to not hurt people, but there is this theme in my life about secrets, and some have saved me and some have nearly destroyed me. Then when Bangs, Bobs, and Banter came to be, I was actually pitched the show, the idea of the show, about a hairstylist, because one of my really good friends who I get my hair done by is a stylist, and she saw Private Parts of Secrets We Keep and said, why don't you do something about the salon? Joanna, you've been coming here for like 14 years. You have seen so many things happen. And what about that? And when I came off the waitlist for the Orlando Fringe, I pitched a couple ideas to Carrie, and she said, I think we're going to go with the hairstyling show, considering there's another theme of secrets here. And I didn't see it necessarily, but she did right away. And it seems like all the other ideas and the ways that I'm going are still leaning into that place.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, obviously you shared on stage. I didn't know all of that because I haven't seen the show yet, but I find that curious that, as you shared, you were born in secret, and that becomes something that you didn't even know, like as a baby, or maybe you did and now you're rediscovering it. I don't know how the time of aging works, but that is something that you as an artist are exploring now, like going back to that. And that's powerful. It's really, really cool. It's kind of fun because your characters seem cheeky. And I don't know, in private parts, are you or are you like a characterization of you?
I'm me. I'm me at different ages of my life as well. The show also has a parallel about my mother who adopted me, who passed away. And so it's a weave of secrets. It turns out that my mom who adopted me has lots of similarities with my birth mom. My birth mom and I don't have contact. That was a decision on her part. But the show also talks about that as well. So I play her and I play myself sort of as a teenager and as a child. And I go back to some memories in my life that defined me. And that's kind of the part of the show is about secrets not defining me, that I can potentially make that choice, or can I? Do secrets have to define us? Because there's generational stuff that's passed along to us, and then things that we actually create. So it's me stopping that. The cycle of life, I just kept feeding into it. And it's about me stopping that.
That is so beautiful. I'm a little bit at a loss for words because of just kind of what you're sharing. And I cannot wait to see the show. It may be a while because I don't know when we're going to be doing that show at the same festival, but I will get to see Bangs, Bobs, and Banter. So talk me through how secrets play into that one, and like, because you play all kinds of different characters, so they're all revealing secrets, and they're, I'm assuming, revealing to Nikki, and what makes them want to talk to her and trust her, and then they all get put on stage. Is she trustworthy? Like, I have so many questions for Nikki.
Right? Here's the thing: is that when my friend and I talked about this, her name is not Nikki, but when we chatted about this, we talked about how, hairstylists are therapists. She might be my friend, but she knows everything about my life. It's a weird thing. Can you imagine sitting in silence with your hairstylist? I mean, I've been there. I've done that in the beginning, but there's a trust that gets built. It's really vulnerable experience to go through that, to trust somebody with a little part of your identity about how you look. And when I leave the salon, there's a feeling I'm left with, a weightlessness, right? From the things that I've gotten to share and how I look and feel every time I leave. I sat with her and we talked a lot about the secrets that were sort of told to her by a lot of her clients. But what she was afraid of was that if I actually put up the show, will people sit in the audience and go, that's me. That's my story. So what I did was I took these stories and I combined characters, because there's themes, there's types of people that have come in, and there's themes of stuff that's happened. So I took those people, and some of them that I actually know, and I combined them into maybe 3 people into one person. And I created a life and a backstory and a thing for these people. And some of the stories, some of the confessions are about affairs, and some are about struggling parents. There's lots of different sort of little secrets. Some of them are revealing secrets about other people. So that's how that sort of came to be. And I actually appear in the show as well. I show up as myself in the show.
That's super cool.
Yeah, it was Carrie's idea. It's a lighthearted part. I remember when she's like, Joanna, I think you need to show up in the show. Like, this is a part of that sort of heartbeat of the show, or, it ties this down, is you showing up. And so I'd write like 3 lines and I'd send it, and she'd be like, Joanna, and I'd be like, okay. I didn't know how to do that. Like, that felt really vulnerable for me. And I didn't really know exactly how to do that, And so the show went up really quickly as well. Like, I came off the wait list. It was written very quickly. And we are revisiting it. Carrie's actually going to be flying to me, and we're not going to change everything about the show. That's definitely not what we're doing, considering the show's been picked up as well and it's being produced. So we are just going to look at the journeys a little bit more and dive a little bit more deeply into it. It's also such an interesting thing to do a comedy and put these heartbeats of truth and things that sort of tie it down without it going into this really dramatic place. That's what I found challenging writing it, because I went to either ends and I'd have to find a middle ground. And that was interesting for me to write and figure that out.
I love it. And I can't wait to see this show.
It's so fun. It's so fun to perform.
I'm so excited. Well, let's talk a little bit about one thing that made me eyeball you was your social media presence and just kind of how you market. You went to drama school. I went to drama school. I went before social media, right? And nobody was talking about marketing, which I think is a disservice to drama students. We're all at some point going to be starving artists trying to figure out getting people to our show. Like that's always a thing. Share some of your social media insights or marketing insights, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
I took this from other people too. Like there's some really great marketers out there doing fringe stuff. And I paid attention to what caught my eye or what felt urgent to me. And a part of that was telling people when shows are selling out, explaining to them, this is the percentage of tickets that are left, making sure to sort of hit that a little bit. And as soon as you get a review, if it's a positive review or you can pull something positive from that to help you out, that also helps. Honestly, it would also help me to know how, I guess, to market, at least to the people I know in my life, was talking to them or their responses back to me of why they were buying the tickets. Like, what is it? What was it about what I wrote? And I think it's the urgency. Making it urgent that tickets are selling, this is happening, and people don't want to miss out. That's just, human nature. We are like, what is this? We need to see it. And building that early on. Also, sometimes sharing your experiences. So when I was building private parts, I talked about flying to New York. I talked about working with Carrie, and people, I didn't realize this, but people were following that journey. And so they're already invested in the show because I was letting them into parts of it. So it isn't just about like showing rehearsal stuff. It's about showing process of just getting there. Any little steps that you're taking, people want to know.
That is such great advice. And I have looked at your account. I literally, at my last festival last year, you had like just this really great little template for like feedback and like people that were coming out of the show and your little videos. And I was like, I'm stealing that. So you just steal and beg and borrow from everybody else. And so that's just really, really, really great. Now you said something that was super interesting to me before we got on the air, that you spent lots of hours like hitting the pavement, getting people to the show. Talk to me about what that looks like and why that is so vitally important at Fringe.
I learned early on that people want to meet you. You can hire people to flyer for you, but I think they really are connected to you. They want to ask you a question. They want to meet the artist. A part of this experience is that they get to. A lot of the times they get to meet us. And I don't know if I've met anybody that really goes, I love flyering. But you know what I do love is the connection to a person. I'm actually not always the greatest at flyering because I'll meet one person and I'll connect with them and that's it. But sometimes I meet a friend or an audience member that comes year after year to see me. Like I meet that connection. And that's important to me. It's really vulnerable to figure out how to pitch your show. And I think that's the most important thing is you need to think about the fast pitch. What does that look like? And a part of it is you can do research, look at commercials, right? Like I did teach more film stuff and commercials as well. But we are selling a product and we're it, and we are worth coming to. And people value their time as we all do. Why should they sit in your seat? Why? And answer that question. Why is it important that they're there? Because they're going to laugh, or it can be really simple. It doesn't have to be this big deal, but this is why. Also, I think people are looking for something that they can relate to. And that's why the shows that I build personally, I build a community. So Private Parts of Secrets We Keep, in Winnipeg, what people really tied on to was the relationship with my mom. People had interesting relationships with their parents all the time, and that connected to people. So you try different things and you'll watch. If you're listening, they will tell you what grabs them. They'll ask for a flyer. So you just got to pay attention. When you're in an interview, listen to the questions that are being asked of you. Those are the things that people are interested about. And with Bangs, Bobs, and Banter, I got to build a community of hair salons. So I would try to go to a local salon. I'd usually only pick one, and I'd say, hey, do you have apprentices, or are you trying to build back your clientele after COVID, or is there anything I can do to help? Let's work together. Is there some way you want to give me something, like maybe a discount or something I can give away at the show, and you can tell people about me and we can cross promote? So I'm building community, and I'm also building marketing. So that's also really important. And customer service. This is really coming down to customer service. At the end of the day, when you go to a salon, it's a service. And most of us have worked in that. Whatever you do for a job, there's an aspect of service. And we all know what it's like to be treated a certain way and then go, okay, have a great day. So that's mainly. And also I did a thing in Edmonton where I walked around with my poster and I would write on it the shows that sold out. So people could, and I would go around to all of my posters and I wrote sold out on the shows that were sold out. And people would be like, oh, and I'd be like, yeah, I have one show left. This is how many tickets. So I built urgency.
It creates that urgency. Oh, I better get my ticket. If I was interested in this one, I can't sit on it. I got to get it. That's really beautiful and really smart. And I mean, listening to you, I think everybody has to do their own thing, right? But it sounds very honest and genuine, which I think is the hard thing with marketing and marketing yourself, is you don't want to come off as like skeezy or, like not authentic. And making those partnerships can feel kind of funny, like, oh, let me give a discount at my show for your salon and you talk me up and that kind of thing. But if it's out of a place of honesty, I think people are always very receptive. And I mean, that's what I hear coming through in your voices, is the honesty of that. And people like that. They like that authenticness.
The thing is that Fringe is something that is tough. In some of these cities we go to, they don't even know they have one. How can we make them aware of this cool thing? Every single time that I get into an Uber, I talk about my show. I find a way to always bring it in. And I also market other people. I will say, I will go up to a board and I will talk about my show and say, this might not be of interest to you, but what are you interested in? I've seen a lot of these shows, or I know a lot of these people. Let me tell you about their show. Do your research. Even if you're new, read stuff about other artists. Because you know what? At the end of the day, they probably will come to your show or they'll tell somebody else about it. It's important that we work together. This is not a competition. It's not something that there's a lot to go around. We all need to be here. This is important that we're all here together doing this.
Yeah, that leads us in, because you wanted to talk about community. And I mean, I just hear that coming through your voice so much. And I mean, it sounds like you have been creating community by recommending other shows and going to see shows and that kind of thing. What other steps do you take intentionally to kind of build community within the Fringe? Because that's something that I do as well. So I'm just kind of curious what your approach is.
Well, any chance I have to anybody who's new to a Fringe, I always will offer my help first, because I do that with everything. Even when an actor is trying to break into film and they don't understand self-tape stuff, I will help them through all of those things. I don't think that it's enough of a hustle. There's enough on the line financially for us too. This isn't free, all the time we put into this art also is our time and money. And I think it's important that I don't want to see artists struggle in that way if they don't need to. I've had to, and it was tough. It's tough. We've all been there. I've performed to, 3 people in an audience. That stuff has happened. It still will. It still can. And I will still be grateful that those 3 people are there. But it's important that I think that we talk to one another. So I try to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I learned this in a different festival. I learned in Orlando, they have this like QR code where you can tip. I've created one. This is the site that I'm using. Let's talk about this. I think it's just important that we spend the time to talk to one another about what we're doing.
It's just really encouraging to hear you talk about all of that. I love it so, so much. I mean, we've gotten so much advice from you today. So I will ask you this. What's been like one of the biggest challenges you faced?
When I toured by myself, that changed things for me. When I toured in groups or with 2 people, I didn't really build as much connection with artists because maybe part of it is that you're leaning on the people you already know and it's kind of scary. I'm still nervous walking into a room with people, even though I know them. I think that's been really challenging for me, being able to feel like, do I fit in here? Like there's times where I've, stood outside of this and gone, do I belong here? What am I doing? What's happening? Like, does my art fit in? Like, I just want to be a part of this group of people. Am I? And second guessing myself. And that's been really hard, and every single festival is different because some festivals you really have, like Orlando has this amazing setup where, the lawn and everybody hangs out there and it's really cool. And then some festivals don't have a centralized spot. And so you're kind of like searching for your people, and just making sure that self-care, really making sure that I'm taking care of myself, not feeling like it's okay that I don't go to that thing. It's okay that I am going home to sleep. It's okay that I'm taking care of myself because I can't keep giving to audiences or serving this show without knowing that I'm at the best I possibly can be. That's tough. That's really tough.
Well, this is my last question that I love to ask everybody. What has been your most interesting or awkward fringe experience? You like to dish on all the secrets. I want to know.
Right? Well, this happened to me in Orlando last year. When I first went to Orlando was the year before that. And I did Private Parts of Secrets We Keep. And it was an interesting experience for me, very humbling. I had one review, but didn't really get reviewed. It was more just an explanation, a little bit of the show. I was still grateful for that. But this year I had paid for someone to help me with marketing too, because I didn't really know that city and that really helped me. That being said, I had already gone through one review. I was so grateful and so happy that this review came out and it was really great. But I didn't know that reviewer would be there. But this other reviewer already had booked their tickets and you can see that. You can see that breakdown if a reviewer is coming and who it is. So I had just performed my show and I was standing out in the little lobby and I was pitching to the new lineup of people that were coming. And there was an audience member who said, "Oh, I just saw it. I just saw your show." And I said, "Are you?" And he had already expressed that he liked it. So I had asked, "Would you be able to pitch the show?" So they did. Also, cool way to find out what people think of your show or how to express it to other people as other people pitching it. And then I said, will you all please come to my show on, I think it was like a Tuesday at 5:45, because I have another reviewer said their name, will be there, and I'd really appreciate it if you would come. And I look over And we all wear lanyards, right? If we are a reviewer or a performer, and wasn't facing up, so I couldn't read it. And I looked and I said, "You're that person, right?" And they're like, yeah, super kind, and said, yeah. Is that the day I'm coming to your show? And I said, yes. Gets worse. I grab them. I grab onto their forearm and I'm not letting go. This is just all happening. I don't know what's going on. And I'm grabbing them. And I looked at them and I said, this is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. I will never forget this moment ever. And I'm still not letting them go. And while I was speaking to them, I'm thinking, let them go. Joanna, release them. Why are you doing this? This is so weird. What are you doing? And I finally released them, mainly because they were ushering us in, because I was seeing the next show after. They were ushering us into the next show. And I told everybody, because that's the only way for me to get over it. I did not want to keep that a secret. I was like, this is weird. Does anybody know this reviewer? This is really awkward. This is what I did. Not the fact about pitching the show that they were there. That's fine. But I grabbed them and I just never let them go. It all turned out okay. Their review was great. It was all fine. I felt really awkward. I still do. We're friends on Facebook. It's fine. But I am still like horrified that was my flight or flight. Like, what's going to happen, fight or flight. And at the time I was really horrified. Like I couldn't believe I did that. It's a big deal. You don't just go do that to people,
Yeah, but it makes complete sense. So, and you know what? They accepted your friend request on Facebook, so I feel like you're good. You're all good. Well, Joanna, thank you so much for joining me today on What the Fringe. Been a long time coming, and it's been so delightful to visit with you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, you can catch Bob's, Bangs, and Banter, Confessions of a Hairstylist, on tour this year. It's headed towards Orlando, Tampa, Hamilton, Ontario, Edmonton, and there are other possibilities of a few more cities being added as the year goes on. The show was also picked up by the Here for Now Theatre Company and will be playing in Stratford, Ontario from August 7th through the 10th. You can get more information on all of these performances on Joanna's website at gravitytheatre.ca, and keep up with Joanna on Facebook and Instagram at Gravity Theatre and Joanna Rannelli. Those will all be linked in the show notes. What the Fringe is produced and hosted by me, Lauren Hance. This episode was edited by Ben Ellis of Renowned Media, and those sweet tunes you hear are provided by Paul Snyder of Orchestra of Sound, and our logo was designed by Ruby Arnold of Ruby Makes Things. What the Fringe can be found on your favorite podcast platforms and now on YouTube. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know when new episodes release. Keep up with What the Fringe on Instagram at whatthefringe_productions, and find us online at whatthefringeproductions.com. Have you ever shown up to tech and realized you are there at the wrong time, or even worse, you're at the wrong venue and you're just so confused and you're like,
do I belong here? What am I doing? What's happening? Does my art fit in? I just want to be a part of this group of people. Am I?